All right, multiplying polynomials, multiplying two polynomials. To multiply any two polynomials, use the distributive property, multiplying each term of one polynomial by each term of the other polynomial, and combine any like terms. So a to the power of, x to the power of a times x to the power of b becomes a to the power of x plus b, which was 5, 1 and 5, 2, right? But polynomial, remember, it can be two monomials like this. This would be a monomial because it's one term times a monomial, that's another single term. Or it could be a monomial times a trinomial. Or it could be the most popular one in algebra, a binomial times a binomial. Okay, so those are just different varieties you'll see. Basically, all you're doing is you're taking 10x and you're distributing it through the parentheses, and there's only one term in the parentheses. So you're just taking 10x, multiplying it by 9x. So take those numbers, 10 times 9 becomes 90, x times x becomes x squared. So you can even look at it as totally separate parts of the problem. You do the numbers together, and then you do the variables together, and only the variables that are alike get multiplied by each other, right? All right, same here with 8x cubed and negative 11x to the 7th. Remember the product rule for exponents is what this is called. The product rule for exponents says if you have the same base and you're multiplying exponents, you keep the base, add the exponents. Good. So again, we're going to take 8x cubed and we're going to distribute it to everything inside the parentheses, which is only one term, the term negative 11x to the 7th. So 8 times 11 is 88, right? But a positive times a negative makes that an 88 a negative 88. And then x to the 3rd times x to the 7th means we keep the base, add the exponents. So we have negative 88 x to the 10th. Good. 3x squared times negative 2x. 3 times negative 2 is 6. Positive times a negative is a negative. X squared times x just means keep the base, add the exponents. That's an understood exponent of 1. Good. So we have 3 times negative 2 becomes negative 6. X squared times x to the 1st becomes x to the 3rd. So it's negative 6 x to the 3rd. Those were all a monomial times a monomial examples. Now we're moving on to a monomial times a binomial. Good. So you're going to take that 4x, you're going to distribute it to 4x cubed and to 8. Okay. If you had like terms in the parentheses, you could combine them. It's not necessarily. Do anything you can to simplify inside the parentheses first, but I don't think that'll come up. So you have 4x times 4x cubed, multiply the numbers. 4 times 4 is 16. X times x cubed. You keep the base, add the exponents. There's an exponent of 1 and an exponent of 3. So that first term is 16x to the 4th. And then 4 times 8. Oh, my calculator's way over there. Way long, far away. Hold on. See, you can be a math teacher even if you forget what 8 times 4 is. It's 32. So we have 16x to the 4th, and then 4x times 8. The 4 times the 8 just becomes 32. And then you have an x times no other x's, so you just carry it over. Good? Interrupt me if you have questions. Or if you want me to just straighten it up, move it into frame, anything like that, requests. Negative 5x squared is going to be multiplied by 5x squared plus, and then it's going to be multiplied by a positive 7x, and then it's going to be multiplied by a negative 2. So negative 5x squared times positive 2x squared, negative 5 times 2 is a negative 10. X squared times x squared is just x to the 4th, because we keep the base, add the exponents. The exponents were 2 and 2. 2 plus 2 makes 4. Then we have negative 5x squared times a positive 7x. Negative times a positive again becomes a negative. 5 times 7 is 35. X squared times x. We're going to keep the base, add the exponents, so that's 3. If you're faster than me, feel free to work ahead. And then negative 5x squared times negative 2. A negative times a negative becomes a positive 10x squared. Good. After you do all of that, make sure you can't combine any like terms. These are not like, because this is raised to the 4th power, this is raised to the 3rd power, and this is raised to the 2nd power. So they're all unique. Good. All right. Next one, another monomial multiplied by a trinomial. So we have negative a squared b times 4a to the 3rd. So it's a negative times a positive. The 4 doesn't have any other numbers with it, so we're just going to bring the 4. But remember, negative times positive is always a negative, so it should just go out in front. Here, it's not a negative number, right? It's a negative a, but it's just going out in front of whatever the entire term is. Good. So it's negative 4, and then a squared, a to the 3rd, right? A 2 plus 3. Yeah. And then b, and it's just b to the 1st, right? Because there's no b to combine it with in here. Again, that a looks like a negative, but the whole term is negative, so we made this whole term negative. It doesn't need to be negative 4 times negative a, right? Because that would be a positive overall. And it doesn't need to be positive 4 times negative a, because that'll look like a minus sign. So we just put that negative that was in front of the a in front of the first term, and the first or the first part of the term, and the first part of the term should always be the number. The number should always be in front of the letter, and the negative should always be in front of, if there is a number or whatever the first variable is. So that's why that negative a became a negative 4. Negative 4, 2 plus 3 is 5, so negative 4, a to the 5th, b. Good. Then we've got negative a squared b times negative 2ab. Again, if you look at the whole term times the whole term, we have a negative times a negative, so that's going to be a positive. So I'm just going to say plus negative 2 just remains 2 because there's no number to multiply by. A times a squared becomes a to the power of 1 plus 2. And then b times b is just b to the power of 1 plus 1, or b squared, right? Plus 2a cubed b squared. Last term I'm going to distribute this to is a b squared. So everything else stays the same, negative a squared, because there's no a's to combine it with. B times b squared is just going to be b 1 plus 2, right? So it was a negative times a positive, so it's a minus a squared b cubed, because b squared multiplied by b just means we're adding another b, so we're making it b cubed. We're multiplying by another b, I should call it. Good. All right, now we're doing FOIL. F stands for first when you're foiling. O stands for outside. I stands for inside. And L stands for last. So you take your first term, you multiply it by both, just like we were doing with those monomials, and then you take your second term and multiply it by both. But what ends up happening is you multiply first by first, outside by outside, inside by inside, and then last times last. So that's why we call it FOIL. Good. So if I was to work FOIL for this first one. My first is y times y, right? Y times y is y squared. My O, or my outside terms, are y and 7. So that's y times 7, which is 7y. My inside terms are 5 times y. And then my last terms that I will multiply together are 5 times 7. A positive 5 times a positive 7 is 35. Good. So then you just take your FOIL and you add them all together. That is y squared plus 7y plus 5y plus 35. Again, these would be subtraction signs if any of those terms were negative. And then you can simplify 7y and 5y. So that's y squared equals 12. Y squared plus 12y plus 35. Good. All right, and so you can do that with this one and this one here. So here you're doing first, outside, inside, last. Here we're going to have to do 1, 2, 3, and then take that second term and do 1, 2, 3. Okay. But here we can still FOIL it. So here, the first is going to be 2x times 7x, which is 2 times 7 is 14. X times x becomes x squared, right? Our outside, or the 2 times the next term, is just 2x times 5, which is 2 times 5 is 10. And there's an x remaining, so we'll just leave an x there. We call it inside, but it's also just moving on to the -4 and multiplying the -4 by the first term. So -4 times positive 7x is going to give us a negative. 7 times 4 is 28x. Good. And then L, or last, just means I take -4 and multiply it by the second term. So -4 times a positive 5 is a -20. Good. And then just like here, I'm going to combine them. Yes. Sorry, I'm going too fast. No problem. Thank you for telling me. All right.
Do you mind waiting for a second so I can write that all
Yes.
down? Thank
I
you.
will definitely wait.
Thank you. I got it all. Thank you.
All right, sorry, I left. Back now. Is it okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Sorry, guys. I have like a bunch of chaos in the home office today. I appreciate all of you being super patient, even though I'm very out of sorts. All right. Binomial, because there are 2, times trinomial, because there are 3. So you're just gonna, what you're gonna do, how you can imagine this is just your first term, multiplied by all of this. And then you're gonna add it to your second term multiplied by all of this. So you're just doing this for as many as there are, right? So here there were only 2 terms. So I only multiplied those 2. I had one thing to multiply, one thing to multiply, one thing to multiply. Here, I needed to multiply here and here, sorry, here and here. So there were 2 things to multiply. Here, I am going to multiply this guy by 1, 2, 3 different numbers. So I'm going to end up with 3. Here, I had to multiply this by 3 different numbers. So I'm going to end up with 3. Here, if you count, you're going to say I'm going to multiply this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to multiply 4 times. I'm going to get 4 answers, but it is possible that I can then combine because they're like terms. So that's another way to think about it, to make sure you're not, if you feel like you're doing it wrong or you're forgetting something, be like, okay, how many did what were the number of possibilities? 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I account for all those? 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? And then that might put you at ease. And then I was going to start here, but I realized I didn't finish this. So it was 14x squared. We're going to combine a 10x and a negative 28x, right? So it's plus 10x minus 28x, and then minus 20. And then because these are like terms, you can combine them. 10x minus 28x, the other 2 stay the same. 14x squared minus 20, those remain the same. Positive 10, negative 28 is this, if they're 2 different terms, ooh, you're already ahead of me. If they're 2 different terms, or if the signs are different, what you want to do is subtract. So 28 minus 10, when you subtract 10, you're just taking 1 off here, right? So 28 minus 10 is just 18. But the 28 is bigger, so it's a negative 18. Or negative 28 plus 10, or 10 minus 28. Good, it should all give you the same answer. Yes. Very good. Is that what I got? Yes. Fabulous. All right, so again, here we have 2 terms here, 3 terms here, because we had 2 terms, so we had 1 answer, 2 terms, 1 answer, 2 terms, 1 answer. Here we have 3 terms, so there are 2 answers. Well, that's not helping. Ignore what I just said. But basically, that A is going to be multiplied by 3, and the 2 is going to be multiplied by 3 different numbers, so we should have 6, right? So A times A cubed is A to the 4th, right? That regular A times the negative 3A cubed is just going to be negative 3A instead of squared. It's going to be cubed. I think I called it cubed to begin with. And then that A times 7, we're just going to call it 7A. All right, so that's my first term. Now, this is a positive 2, but if this was a minus sign, just like that 4 was a minus, we would make it a negative 4, okay? But it's a positive. So 2 times A to the 3rd. Just multiplying 2 times a variable, so you put the 2 in front of the variable, you're done. Positive 2 times a negative 3 is a negative 6. 2 times 3 is 6. Positive times a negative is a negative. A squared, because there's no variables with the 2. And then you have a positive 2 times a positive 7. You can just put that in your calculator. And then you can count them up. I should have multiplied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Now don't forget that some of these can be combined. So that one can be combined with that one. Oh, oddly, that is it. I think. Yeah. And you want to always put them in descending order. So start with the biggest exponent. Then we have the 4th, then to the 3rd power. Negative 3 and positive 2 is just a negative A. Good, because you're not changing the base or the exponent, you're just combining them. So a -3 plus 2 is just 3 minus 2 is 1, but the 3 is a negative, so it's a -1. -1a cubed or just -a cubed. Good. And those are the only ones you can combine. So then you go on to the a squared. Good. All right, 2y squared plus 5 times y squared plus 3y plus 4. It's the same as 2y squared times y squared plus 3y plus 4. So what that would become is 2y squared times y squared becomes 2y to the 2 plus 2 is 4. 2y squared times 3y, 2 times 3 is 6. And then count up your y's. You have 2 here and 1 here, so that's 3. And then 2y squared times 4 is 8. Y squared. Good. The next thing you're going to do is that positive 5 times those 3. All right, you try it, see what you get. And then you can combine them. Combine any like term. So 5 times y squared is 5y squared. 5 times 3y is just 15y. 5 times 3 is 15. There's one y. Y to the 4th. Where? Right here? I was like, probably I'm making mistakes today. 5 times 4, 20, right? Again, there were no sign changes or anything. So now you have 2y to the 4th, 6y to the 3rd, 8y squared plus 5y squared. Because if this is positive and you're combining these, that just means put a plus right here. Plus 5y squared plus 15y plus 20. If you look, there's only 2 terms. Oops, sorry. 8y squared plus 5y squared plus 15y plus 20. There are only 2 terms you can combine. Good. Only combine the y squareds. Everything else just stays really long. All right. 2y to the 4th plus 6y to the 3rd plus, you're combining 8 and 5, you get 13y squared plus 15y plus 20.
Wait, I'm really confused. confused. Where did that long problem come from?
Where did this come from? That's a good question. So
Yeah,
no, that's a good question.
like the long problem that you just wrote down.
So I just broke this. This was 2 terms multiplied by 3 terms. So I just took that and multiplied it by that and put that here. And so that was these 3. It became this. And then, I don't know if this helped or not, sorry. Especially if I didn't explain what I was doing well. And then I took the 5 and multiplied it by that down here. And that's what this one is. And then I took, so that answer was 2y to the 4th plus 6y to the 3rd plus 8y squared. That answer was these first 3. So these first 3 was supposed to be the 2y squared being multiplied by those 3. And then the last 3 terms was that positive 5 being multiplied by the y squared, 3y, and 4.
Okay, I see now.
Sorry.
So
thank you
when
for-
you're adding each other, it's just going to be 13y squared and not 13y to the 4th when they're adding instead of multiplying.
There, oh yes, exactly. Ooh, very good distinction. Yes, because we spent all this time multiplying and now we're adding. Yes, when you're
Yeah.
adding, you're just like when you like add in elementary school, you're just like counting them. Like you're
Oh, okay.
putting, you're taking 8. Imagine, so yeah, when you're adding them, imagine them as little like.
I was just making sure.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. They're little
Okay,
y
all right.
squareds, and you're like counting them. You're like, now I have 8 here and 5 here, so now I have 13. But if you're multiplying them, it's not.
I
that.
saw that too, and I was kind of questioning it too, and I thought maybe I went wrong somewhere. I was like, wait.
Well, I was just looking at my own work, and I like have a different one that I guess I taught this. It's probably in a video where I decided that 2y squared times y is 4y to the 4th. So I did that. I did not catch it ever. That was my answer. And then this one I had done wrong too. So it's not you. This is very complicated, and it's just like it's very easy to make small mistakes that then are hard. It's hard to find a small mistake when you have something this big. All right, example 3. We're just doing more foiling. So remember, first in this case is 2y squared times y. The 2 doesn't change, but you're multiplying y's. So y squared times y becomes 3y's. Outside, or just the second number you need to multiply 2y squared by. So that's 2y squared times just a -4. So -4 times 2 is a -8. Nothing happens with the y squared. Inside, or your next term, is just +3 times a positive y. So that's a 3y. And then last is just 3 times the last term. So we took 2y squared, we multiplied it by the first one, the second one. Now we're taking +3, and we multiplied it by the first one. Now we're multiplying it by the second one. 3 times a -4. There are not any variables, and that's fine. 3 times a -4 is 12, right? But positive times a negative is a negative. So that is 2y to the 3rd minus, because it's a -8y squared, plus, because there's no sign in front of the 3y minus 12. And that one, there are no like terms to combine. So again, we can FOIL here, 3x minus 7y times 3x plus, or sorry, 7x plus 2y. 3x times 7x, you're just going to multiply the 3 times the 7. 3 times 7 is 21. X times x is x squared. O, or just the next one, is 3x times 2y. 3 times 2 is 6. They were both positive. And then x times y just means you bring those both along. Oh. Yes, you are correct. Inside would be negative 7y times 7x. So now you're just multiplying 7 times 7, 49. Negative times a positive makes it a negative 49 xy. Just like this was an xy because we had an x and a y. This is another xy because we have an x and a y. I put them in alphabetical order. That's what like the math world does, but you're not wrong if you put it yx. It's just unusual. And it's important. What the important thing to know is that 6xyx is the same as 6xy. So you can combine.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when we're done writing down what F, O, I, and L mean, I can already see that negative 49xy and 6xy, are they going to be like terms?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I was just curious because it had a negative in front of it, and I didn't know if the rules still applied.
Yes, it just means you have to subtract the 49 from the 6. So that's going to be a good question. Let's just jump to it. 6 minus 49 or negative 49 plus 6. So you're just combining them, and you're just anytime you're combining like terms, you're respecting the sign. So you would never say 49 plus 6 unless they were both positive. Good question. And then yeah, to just in case you ever got 6yx. So if you got 6yx minus 49xy, those are still like terms. That's still negative 43xy. Does not matter what order they're in, as long as the signs, or sorry, as long as the variable, they have the same variables raised to the same powers. The last one, the L, is negative 7y times positive 2y. So negative 7 times a positive 2 is a negative 14. Y times y is y squared. So we have 21x squared plus 6xy minus 49xy minus 14y squared. You're combining 6 and 49, but their signs are different, so you're subtracting. 49 minus 6 we saw was 43. And then keep the signs. So it's minus 43xy minus 14y squared. Anytime you have one is positive and one is negative, your answer, and you're combining them, your answer should be the same sign as whichever of those is bigger. So 49 is bigger than 6. So 43 is going to be a negative 43 because 49 was negative. Or just put it in your calculator. Okay, this is where it's there's a rule for it, but you can get there without the rule. So if you wanted to put this on your note card, it can just save you a step. A binomial, which is just two terms, a binomial squared is equal to the square of the first term. So the first term they mean is a, the square of a plus or minus, depending on if it's the binomial has a plus or minus inside it. Twice the product of both terms means a and b, plus the square of the second term. The second term is b. If this doesn't make sense to you and you want to ignore it, I think that's okay. If it overwhelms you, you can get there without these formulas. I'm not saying ignore this, but I'm saying you can just FOIL, as long as you understand FOIL, you can get from here to there without the rule, without understanding this phrase. All right, so what's important is that to know that you are squaring the whole binomial. So x plus 6 squared must become x plus 6 times x plus 6. It cannot be x squared plus 6 squared. And then you have to FOIL it. So here, x times x is x squared. X times 6 is 6x. 6 times x is 6x. And then 6 times 6 is 36. So now I have x squared. Those are all positive, so I'm just going to combine them, plus 6x plus 6x plus 36. And when you are squaring a binomial, you'll always get this format. You'll get two terms in the middle that are the same term, and you just add them together or subtract them together. They'll either be two positives or two negatives. So that becomes x squared plus 12x plus 36. And if we look at that special product rule, that is a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. A squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Because a was x in this case, and b was 6, right? So if I said x squared plus 2 times x times 6 plus 6 squared, would that be true? X squared plus 2 times 6, which is 12, times x plus 6 squared, which is 36. So all they're telling you is you don't need to FOIL it. You can use a squared plus 2ab plus b squared if you want. And that if it's subtraction, it'll be minus 2ab. Good, but you don't need that formula. You can just write it out. So here we can say 12a minus 3 times 12a minus 3. Good. All right, this will be the last one. So first, 12 times 12 is 144. Remember, a times a is a squared, very important. Outside, 12 times a negative 3. 12 times 3 is 36. Negative times positive is a negative. Negative 36a. Again, I know I'm doing the same thing. Negative 3 times positive 12. So I'm just going to call that negative 36a again. And then negative 3 times a negative 3 is a positive 9. Good. And again, we're combining those two and they're both negative. So we can say 36 plus 36 is 72. So it's a negative 72, or negative 36 minus 36 is a negative 72. 144a squared minus 72a, don't forget your a, plus 9. Good. And I think we can get through the rest. I apologize for not getting finished, but I think we can get through the rest on Friday. Wednesday, it's Monday. Thank you guys so much. Bye.